2012. Hello everyone and welcome to Grand Prix Nashville 2012 here on day 2. We are gearing up for round 10. It is draft action. Dark Ascension, Innistrad, and we have Caleb Durward against Corey McDuffie. There is Caleb. You saw him a ton on camera last week, doing ever so well in Legacy, and with his trademark headphones he's never seen without them, Corey McDuffie. There he is. And in the background you see Owen Turtenwell getting ready for his match. So we are underway here in round 10, and straight away Caleb will get us going with Caravan Vigil. Ben, he was saying, talking through his deck, that he's got a 7/7/3 mana base to support a couple of black cards for swamps, but he said that basically he was happy to go 7/7 because he had some green fixing that could functionally make him feel like he was weighted towards white, which is where his deck is.
Yeah, I think in the decks that don't really have a splash but have more of the color, so like in this deck with 3 swamps, a card like Caravan Vigil can really help, because when you add that many of a third color to your deck, you sort of remove the chance that you draw some of your other main colors. So Caravan Vigil helps in all those things. But
so, Avacyn Priest is pretty decent as well, but there's something quite good on the right-hand side.
Mayor of Avabrook for Corey McDuffie. Let's see if Caleb has anything to deal with that, either in the form of a spell to make sure that it doesn't flip over, or some sort of removal spell.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's Doom Traveler and Avacyn's Pilgrim. So the Mayor of Avabrook is slated to stop being a human advisor werewolf and turn into a straight-up God's Honest werewolf. That's a 3/3 with all sorts of benefits going on.
There's 2 sort of ways to play against Mayor of Avabrook. You can hope that your opponent doesn't have too many cards in his hand that they could play, and sort of out-aggressive them, like something like Caleb's doing. Or you can destroy it immediately. And if you don't do one of those 2 things, it's pretty tough to win.
Yeah.
So unless Caleb here has 2 spells to retransform Halpak Alpha back into a Mayor of Avabrook, or something like Travel Preparations here would be great, I'm not sure exactly what he can do.
3 mana gets him Chapel Geist. He's still got 2 mana available because he has the Avacyn's Pilgrim.
I see a Burden of Guilt in his hand that he might want to cast on the Halpak Alpha. But yes, a second spell here will transform.
Ah, okay, there we go.
He
Bonds of Faith on his own Doom Traveler,
giving it +2/+2, and decides to attack him.
And say, do you want a sort of 2-for-1 me? Because he gets the 1/1 flyer back.
Yeah, but I mean, in the long run, Mayor of Avabrook is more powerful.
Yeah, so presumably Corey takes, right?
Yeah. Even though he's not getting a wolf at the end of this turn, and Halpak Alpha is retransforming, it's still so powerful that
it's worth persisting with.
Yeah, there's no reason to make that trade.
No, and Caleb is obviously down very low on cards. We've already seen Caravan Vigil go. He's got 5 permanents in play, plus his 4 land. He's very low on cards. Never mind whether he has mana constraints, he's simply not going to have two spells to cast, I would imagine.
So if Corey decides just to pass the turn here and retransform Mayor of Avabrook, it's going to be really tough then for Caleb to do it again on his turn.
Yeah, it's risky though, isn't it? Because this is something that you were talking about most persuasively yesterday. That you look at that board state, there's a lot going on Caleb's side. If Corey just skips this turn, and then somehow Caleb does deal with it, particularly if it's not just let's have a trade, but actually deals with it straight up somehow, you're looking at a heavy, heavy favourite.
I mean, another thing to note is if he just passes the turn, Mayor of Avabrook transforms into a werewolf, is no longer a human, then Caleb on his turn can tap it down with a Vassinian Priest and get in for a good amount of damage. So instead, Corey opts to cast Kessig Recluse here.
Yeah, so the Recluse is obviously going to slow things down mightily, and he can wait a little while for Mayor to transform once again, get to the point where Caleb really can't do anything. 4 mana from Caleb. It's a Kessig Recluse of his own. Avacinian Priest taps down Kessig Recluse, and in comes the Air Force. 5 damage. Chapel Geist for 2. Doomed Traveler in the for 3.
So this is sort of one of the solutions to Mayor of Avonbrook, is hope your opponent time walks himself a couple times. You expand your board and get in for a lot of points. The problem, though, is that if Corey's got something to sort of slow down the game, then, and Caleb doesn't have a removal spell for Mayor of Avonbrook, then Mayor of Avonbrook will start taking over the game.
Yeah.
Caleb's expended all his resources in the early game to try to get rid of, make sure Mayor of Avonbrook doesn't make a difference on the board, but something like Keswick Recluse can really slow the game down. Let's see what Corey has to offer.
He's laid another forest. Don't think the absence of the second red is a massive deal right now.
I saw a travel preparation in Corey's hand, but no white mana. But a Vorpapede is what he'll end up casting. A Vorpapede.
Yes.
Excuse me.
2 and triple green.
The card is very, very powerful.
It's quite naughty, isn't it, really?
Unfortunately for Corey, the Abyssinian Priest will be able to keep it at bay for some amount of time. And the Burden of Guilt that I believe Caleb's about to cast on it will also... Yep.
Mm-hmm. How about that's tapped? And then how about that's tapped as well? And then how about I go smashy, smashy, smashy?
If you want to trade your Mayor of Avonbrook for my Abyssinian Pilgrim. Yeah. Let's see what Corey opts to do. It's going to be tough for him to take it all here. Is that 5, 6, 7, 8 damage? Looks like what he does, and Corey drops to 3 life.
My imagining things was Mayor of Avonbrook, every time we've seen it so far this weekend on turn 2, being monstered out of all existence.
I think there was one game.
Did it actually do anything?
On turn 2, it was able to win.
Okay.
We saw it in game 1 and game 2. In the first game, it didn't win. The second game, it did win.
Oh, okay.
That was yesterday.
It feels to me like it's not done a lot this weekend on camera. Somberwild Dryad, Forest Walker for Corey.
Interesting that Corey chose to start that card, but lucky he's playing against somebody with forests.
And Dark Thicket.
I mean, Corey's real problem here is dealing with that Chapelgeist, right? It's going to get in for 2 pretty much regardless of what Corey does, because the Abyssinian Priest tapping down the Keswick Recluse. So that's 2 turns that Corey has to somehow deal with that flyer.
Yeah, and this is one of those 2 turns. So I'll make the Dryad a bit bigger.
With travel preparations.
So that'll get it to 3-3. And then... where does that right-hand dice go?
See, Corey's thinking through a lot here. He doesn't want to make a creature too powerful that, incentivizes Caleb to tap it down using the Abyssinian Priest. Like, if you were to place on Keswick Recluse, that's almost definitely already getting tapped down. So maybe spread the wealth around a little bit.
Yeah.
So let's see what he ends up doing.
Don't think it will seem a reasonable plan. Oh.
Maybe not.
I mean, don't think it will seems like a reasonable plan.
Yeah.
Because the Mayor of Avonbrook isn't really getting involved at this stage. The Keswick Recluse will be getting tapped down.
And obviously, Somberwild Dryad's a no-brainer, because giving your unblockable creature +1/+1.
It's going to go on the Mayor. And Corey passes. He's tapped out.
Let's see what Caleb's got.
2 cards. Plenty of mana. Here comes the Abyssinian Priest to tap down the Keswick Recluse. Just like that.
Let's see how Caleb attacks.
Well, the way he moved all his creatures there to let everything except the Chapel Geist just move slightly backwards. Like, it wasn't so much the Chapel Geist volunteered, it's like everything else went, oh, I'll be back here. But no, he's going to pile in. I suppose at the point at which Corey falls to 1, if the Doom Traveler dies, Caleb gets his insurance flyer for the 1 point of damage he would need.
And maybe that was a reason why Corey didn't put travel preparations on his Dark Thicket Wolf, right? So he has a creature still to block and not kill the Doom Traveler. I guess he has that anyway in the form of Mayor of Avonbrook, but perhaps the way he wants this game to play out, he needs Mayor of Avonbrook to transform and produce him a couple of wolves. So Corey pondering over his blocks. And looks like he's going to trade away the Somber Old Dryad for the Doomed Traveler, giving Caleb a 1/1 Flying Spirit token. That's interesting. I wonder what Corey has to deal with the 2 flyers from Caleb now.
So, here we go again. Burden taps down. I think he's drawn Brimstone Volley.
That's a good one to draw. Especially when you get... It'll save him for 1 turn, right? He'll be able to take out the Chapelgeist. Maybe not.
But no, because the Kessig Recluse... I don't know. So, Corey lays land passes. He's got his Falcon Wrath Marauders to go with his Brimstone Volley. Caleb lays a land. 4 mana.
Looks like Thraben Sentry.
Okay, so make sure that if bad things do happen, I get a 5/4 out of it when Morbid occurs, as it were.
5/4 Trampler. So that, regardless of what Corey does, it's going to be really tough for him to deal with the Trampler. So Caleb taps down the Kessig Recluse. And I think Caleb's got this game locked up. Corey's got nothing. Caleb just wants to make sure he doesn't make a mistake here. And yep.
He didn't, and that's game. So Caleb Durward leads 1-0. We've seen a lot of camera time for Caleb over the last 10 days or so, as he's done ever so well last weekend at Indianapolis. A legacy specialist writes extensively about that format, and he said, look, honestly, I don't like my deck very much. I think I did some very bad signaling around the table. But on the plus side, that probably means that their decks are horrible too. Which is one way of looking at it, I suppose. So that's Durward. And on the other side, Corey McDuffie, they see him 1 down. Owen Turtenwild still in the middle of his game in the background. Owen won his winning in last night at 6-2 with a deck that he felt was genuinely horrible. One of the 3 players who built our sealed pool for us. And I think one of the lessons of yesterday, Ben, was just how our 3 players, who are all tremendous in their own right, Matt Costa, David Sharfman, Owen Turtenwild, with a pool that we didn't craft to make especially complicated. It was just 6 boosters that got opened up. They went all over the place with it. There were just 3. It wasn't like 20 cards the same and then, I'm going to splash, I'm not going to splash. It was 3 different decks. Extraordinary.
I think another interesting thing to note about this draft format, from walking around the tables and looking at Caleb's deck, we didn't get to see his 3rd color in black this game, but there have been a lot more 3-color decks in this format once Dark Ascension was added to the mix that I've seen. 3 and 4-color decks. Cards like Dawn Treader Elk have really helped people play that extra color. I know Gerard Fabiano's deck that I looked at has 4 colors in it.
Oh, right, okay.
And Bensek, of course, playing 5 colors. Maybe that's why I picked those 2 to win. I want to see them win with their crazy decks. But even Shuhei Nakamura, I'm pretty sure, is splashing a 3rd color in his normal blue-white deck that I saw. So...
Well, the thing is, there are some really good cards that are very splashable. I mean, if you pick up a Brimstone Volley out when you're blue-white, really, by and large, why wouldn't you play a Brimstone Volley that you were able to pick up in pack 3 somewhere pretty early when there's no good blue or white flyer for you or whatever? That seems like it seems like minimal downside for potentially quite a lot of upside, because 5 damage with the Morbid is a lot.
Right. I also think another thing contributing to more splashes is sort of the power level of the commons in Dark Ascension. They're not as powerful as the commons in Innistrad. So people end up with 1 or 2 fewer playables, so they have to start reaching to the 3rd color, maybe the 4th color, to get enough playables to get a coherent deck to be able to hopefully defeat their opponents.
So Corey McDuffie's been in the Grand Prix top 8 stage before. That was at Dallas Fort Worth last year. And then as for Caleb, well, he made it in to the top 8 of Columbus in 2010.
That was his breakout tournament with the Vengevine Survival of the Fittest deck.
Yeah, that's right. And then, of course, last week, Indianapolis made it to the quarterfinal and just missed out on going the distance. Obviously happy with his weekend, but I think more disappointed than many losing quarterfinalists are. There are a lot of people you sometimes see, I've had a great run, I made the top 8, this is awesome. Caleb was very disappointed. And of course, remember, the top 4 get invites to the Pro Tour. So quarterfinals, pretty big deal sometimes.
Yeah, I think also Caleb's mindset has sort of changed. When he top-aided Columbus, he did everything he wanted to do. He got an article writing gig. He started traveling to Magic events. He started playing Magic professionally, and that's really what he enjoyed doing. But it's been a year or two since he's done that, and now his mind is sort of shifted. He wants to do well. He doesn't want to just keep grinding it out. He wants to actually be one of the top players. And to do that, he has to put in a lot more work, change his mindset, and hope to win. So I think that was another reason why he was so upset with his quarterfinal exit last weekend. So the players are getting ready for their second game here. I wonder if Corey will have another turn 2 Mayor of Avabrook, and I wonder if Caleb will be able to defeat it again. Did you do much walking around looking at other people's sealed decks during the draft? Draft decks during the draft.
Yeah, I looked at these two, basically. I was just really interested because I knew we were going to have a good look at them. And so I didn't really get a sense of what particular people were doing. I just had a good sort of wander around and was really just looking at the pods.
Yeah.
Just to look at some of those crazy things. Because you see someone, you think, all right, there's Owen at his table, with 7 people who he would feel he's favoured over. And then there's Sprinkle sitting next to Costa, good grief. And then you look at the next one, and there's Shaheen Sarani at a table with 3 other really good players, and you just think, it really is luck of the draw, where you end up in the pods, but it makes a huge difference. It really does. Looks like Caleb going pretty instantly to 6, and Corey's going to do the same.
Another interesting thing is, when you're sitting at home, you don't really get that feeling that it's these pods fighting against the people inside them fighting against each other,
Sure.
right? It's sort of lost, but when you're able to walk around the room and see 8 people sitting at a round table drafting, you can pick out the people you hope to win, the pods that are going to be really important, the pods with the powerful players.
Yeah, and you know that only one. It's like what is it? UFC? Is that what they call it? I don't know.
I've never
Ultimate
seen
Fighting
it, so.
Championship or whatever. It's like cage fighting, in that 8 enter, only 1 leaves. It's basically what happens at the 7 and 2s,
Right.
because even if you go 2 and 1, you're at 9 and 3. There's no way that 12 and 3 really gets you in. I guess it's theoretically possible, but basically speaking, 7 and 2s are all about win, get out of the first draft pod, enter the next cage of 8, win, then raise your eyes to the standings, see whether 37 might be good enough. Last few weeks, that hasn't really been the case.
Looks like both players will keep their 6-card hands, and let's see how Caleb starts off this game. No play from him. Is there a play from Corey on his second turn? Doesn't look like it. A slow start for both players. Caleb does have a 3-drop in the form of Chapelgeist. Let's see if Corey's got something to counter that flyer. Oh, Corey has a Mayor of Avabrook. A turn late, perhaps. Looks like he just drew that this turn. Now Caleb's put on the back foot. He needs a spell here, or else Mayor will transform into Halpak Alpha, which is going to be tough to deal with. Caleb opting to cast Burden of Guilt on the Mayor of Avabrook to make sure that it does not transform.
So just to give you a guide, last week at Indianapolis, where there were slightly more players, one 37-pointer made it into the top 8. That was Adam Yurchik. There were 3 others at 37, Jason Ford, Garrett Young, Matthias Hunt, the Rookie of the Year, on 37, who did not make it in. And the top 36-pointer was David Sharpman in 12. So that was with a slightly bigger field.
That was an interesting play. Corey passed his turn in hopes that his Mayor of Avabrook would transform, but Caleb really didn't want to transform, so he cast Feeling of Dread targeting the Mayor of Avabrook at end of turn, so a spell would be cast, so it would not transform on Caleb's turn. Caleb draws his second forest, so he's able to cast the Kessig Recluse that was sitting in his hand, and he was pretty much able to time walk Corey there with that feeling of dread. A reasonable use for a card with flashback. He'll get more value out of it later.
Indeed.
So Corey really on the back foot here. He needs a couple more creatures to have a fighting chance in this game. Of course, he can pass this turn again and transform his Mayor of Avabrook, but with that feeling of dread sitting in the graveyard, Caleb only really needs one more spell, be it only 3 mana, to retransform Halpak Alpha back. That's what Corey opts to do, transforming Mayor of Avabrook into Halpak Alpha. And Caleb will get in for 4 with his creatures. Looks like Caleb will just pass it back, giving Corey a turn of his own with Halpak Alpha in play. So Corey's definitely going to get a wolf next turn.
Yeah, now Grand Prix Seattle, which was in this format, of course, and on this continent with roughly similar numbers. I think Seattle was over 1,000, right?
Yep.
There you had 2 37s making it in. Owen Turton, Wilder, and Ian Bartolome, and it was a clean cut to 37. So
maybe that'll happen again this weekend.
Yeah, so I guess that's kind of what you're aiming at. So maybe these people can go 5 straight wins and then look at the possibility of hiding, as we see Vorapede coming out with the triple green.
And Vorapede will really get to shine this game as opposed to last game. There's no Avacinian Priest on Caleb's side.
Yeah. And although the life scores are 20-12 in Caleb's favour, right now I guess you would say that Corey's favoured right now.
Yeah, I mean, Halpak Alpha being active.
Hello.
Ooh.
That'll be Bonds of Faith. So there wasn't an Abyssinian Priest, but there was a way to deal with it straight away.
And Feeling of Dread will come out to cast 2 spells on Caleb's turn to make Halpak Alpha retransform.
And then in we go again.
Corey dropping to 8 life. Now he really needs something. With 2 of his creatures effectively pacifism down, his Mayor of Avabrook no longer creating 2/2 wolf tokens. Corey needs something to deal with the flyer and the reach creature.
He's got plenty of cards.
Ooh, I see a Moon Mist in his hand.
That's
a spicy one.
Transform all humans?
Yep. Prevent all combat damage dealt by non-wolf and werewolf creatures.
Yeah, Corey. I mean, Corey has some removal for Chapel Geist potentially. He's got Brimstone Volley, we know. He's got Fling. There's a Harvest Pyre lurking in the deck somewhere that he hasn't really seen.
I think Corey really wants a Kessig Recluse of his own.
Yeah.
To take out that Chapel Geist.
And there you see in that shot the absence of Owen Turtonwell from the back table.
Not sure exactly what the result of that match was, but...
Yeah, you never really know by telling. One of those things is like when you see someone leave the table first, is that leaving in disgust, or do you just go, thanks for letting me beat you 2-0, bye. And then the other guy's sitting there going, man, he really killed me.
There's some players you can read on their face whether or not they won, but Owen's not one of those players.
No, he is not.
So no spells from Corey will retransform Halpak Alpha.
Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Caleb will just go, let's play some more Smash. Kessig Recluse and Chapel Geist come in.
So the question here is, does Corey want to bite the bullet on that Moon Mist?
So Wolf will get in the way.
He'll trade with Kessig Recluse thanks to Halpak Alpha. If Caleb wants that to go through. Assuming he has nothing to say about it. Yep. Looks like that trade will go through. Corey.
Oh, of course, going, no, wait a minute. He's thinking about the Moon Mist.
I see.
Oh, no, and now he's saying, yes, okay, yes, we're done. So it was one of those sort of little end of combat things that weren't quite the end of combat, but now actually is the end of combat.
Right, the thing with Moon Mist is it would save Corey's wolf token, but perhaps he feels he can get more value out of it later.
So Burden of Guilt continues to afflict the Halpack Alpha. And Bonds of Faith has somewhat nullified the extremely large and extremely threatening Borapede. Meanwhile, the Vanilla 2-3 Flyer continues apace, and Corey is at 6.
Although Corey will start amassing an army of 3-3 wolves.
Yeah, the important thing though, I imagine that Caleb at 20 is feeling, I'm all in on this Chapel Geist man, but that he will get there.
Yeah, Corey really needs to answer
time.
to it.
Yeah. Yes, the army is what will ultimately defeat Caleb if Corey survives the Chapel Geist, but it won't actually affect whether the Chapel Geist wins or not.
I mean, working in Corey's favor, he does have that Moon Mist to stall for an extra turn.
Sure.
So
he has this turn plus 2 more.
Yep.
Right now. Maybe he can race with that extra turn.
I see a travel preparations in his hand that he might be able to use on a couple of wolves to pump them up, since he has drawn his plan, so he's able to flash it back.
Wow.
He has to be careful, though, of course. He doesn't want to play 2 spells on his own turn and retransform his Halpack Alpha back into Mayor of Attleborough.
Sure.
That's always something to be careful of. He put all this hard work into time-walking himself to getting it to this point. Going back the other direction is not what he wants.
I wonder whether Caleb suspects the Moon Mist, because Corey went through that elaborate end of combat bit with, oh, wait, I'm not sure I rely, and you're thinking, well, why? What would you be doing there? Caravan Vigil, not the most exciting spell in the known universe, round about this time.
No. I mean, that's one of the interesting things when you're playing Magic, is to note sort of those out-of-game things that your opponent does, sort of like pausing at a certain time and trying to piece together what's in their hand because of that. I know a good player like Caleb Durward can use that sort of deductive reasoning to maybe figure that out about Corey's hand.
Another Burden of Guilt for a wolf.
Wow. Caleb really doesn't want to lose to those wolves.
And there you see that the power of white, in that notionally pretty defensive, but you just look at the fact that you've got 3 creatures on Corey's side of the board, none of which are doing anything.
Yeah.
It's just like, I'll put you to sleep, I'll make you feel bad about yourself, I'll make you feel really bad about yourself. Sorry, Wolf, you just sit there cowering and feeling hungry.
So now Corey, if he wants to, can cast Moon Mist to transform the Mayor of Attlebrook back.
There's the travel preparations that you talked about.
Yeah. Or also it gives him an opening to cast 2 spells this turn. The problem, though, is that it's not really effective to cast travel preparations on a creature that can't attack.
Indeed.
It looks like Corey wants to supercharge that one wolf, make it a 5/5. So Corey here likely going to get in for 5, dropping Caleb to 12. Then he's going to use Moon Mist on Caleb's following turn to avoid death. Oh, he's got a second travel preparations. Wow.
Of course, he can't just stick it all on one guy.
Right.
So he's stuck with essentially wasting one.
But 6 damage from the wolf.
See, that looked like a big attack, but actually that was just 2 guys getting tapped down. Like, this and these aren't getting involved. So Caleb, I imagine, doesn't think he has the win right here. I imagine he knows that there's something not good coming.
But he's going to cast a Thraben Sentry first.
Yep.
Just in case something funny happens.
If you're going to kill it, let's...
Yeah.
So attack, and we're going to get Fogland. There it is.
Moon Mist, transform my guy. But I still don't see Corey...
Doesn't seem to be enough, does it?
Yeah. Math doesn't quite work out.
So he is still living off the top of his deck one time to get rid of the Chapel Geist. Or we're going to see Caleb Durward advancing.
You need something like Brimstone Volley here. Let's see. Forest, I don't think is going to do it. And I think I may have already lost one match.
Oh, really? Your bracket is
One
going
bracket,
badly
yeah.
in our March Madness here? Let's see. It's not quite over yet.
Caleb, using 2 mana to activate Burden of Guilt.
Oh, they're just checking that, in fact, the Thraven Sentry is now a militia.
Oh, right, because of Moon Mist.
It's that like a little fist bump there. Hey, I get to transform. But there you go.
Corey loses that match to Caleb Durward, who wins 2 games to 0.
So let's see if we can get Caleb into the booth to talk with our good friend Ben here.
I've already lost my bracket in pod 2.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But you still have 2 rounds to go. You could also still lose.
Well, thank you. That's certainly true.